This is our 7th session on dealing with dementia. And if you look at, and if you're watching this on video, maybe even a year or two later, know that you can get the notes from the church office. Session 7, the seminar is dealing with dementia, and the notes are all in numerical order. So if you look at, we're starting with item number 100, and that helps to refer back to things in previous sessions. So it's helpful to have the notes if you're watching the video. And what we want to do today is to look at what the issues are that caregivers are facing and try to figure out solutions for those issues. And I would tell you right off that the most important thing, the most important support for any caregiver is a support group. And this seminar was never designed to be a support group. It's only designed to provide information. A support group is where you sit around a table and you have a lot of discussion and a lot of sharing. And it's not at all the kind of thing where I'm presenting information. And luckily, would you believe, currently we have a support group that meets on our church campus. It's run by a lady whose first name is Krista, and she is a, Joe, what's her last name? Metham. Well, anyway, she's a wonderfully knowledgeable lady, and I went to the support group once to see what it was like, and it's run so well. It really is a great help. So that's the second Sunday of the month at 2 o'clock here at church, and that's really a good thing. And the amazing thing is that it's right here on our church campus, and you don't have to drive to San Bernardino or Fontana to get it, because they're hard to find, and especially one that is as good as this one is. It's really excellent. It gives the caregiver the opportunity to share and to make the discovery that they're not the Lone Ranger. They're not the only one facing these issues. And it's so helpful to find out what other people are doing and what their experiences are. So keep that in mind if you're a caregiver. And if you look at paragraph 100, it starts out with an interesting quote from Rosalind Carter, the wife of former President Carter, who said there are only 4 types of people: those who were caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who need caregiving. In other words, in life it seems that everyone is touched by caregiving. And it may not be Alzheimer's disease or dementia. It may be cancer or who knows what. I mean, you know, one of the reasons that RNs make such bad patients is they know all the diseases there are and, you know, what they're like. There are so many diseases you've never heard of. And many of these diseases are what we call opportunistic. They only occur because of the opportunity that the body that they were lodged in is old. You don't have to have any predisposition. You don't have to have factors in your genetics or your family. Just the fact that you're getting old, you open yourself up to all these terrible diseases. So caregiving is a reality that we can't escape. And it's and the kind of information that I'm presenting in this seminar is really helpful to people who are dealing with this in their family, especially when they start out and they don't know of a support group, and they don't know who to talk to, and they don't know where to go. and what to do. And my whole seminar is written as a guide for caregivers. And I know that's why you're here, because you're interested in that as well. Well, look at 101. We come to the first question: are we caregivers or are we care partners? Now, the new in word is care partners. You don't say caregiver anymore, you say care partner, because it emphasizes the collegiality, the two of you on this path together, going through life, doing the very best that you can. I think that's a great idea, but in reality, when it comes down to facing the daily facts that you have to deal with, I think that I just prefer caregiver. And so I'm using that, and I know that in today's world I'd be criticized by healthcare providers, for using the word caregiver instead of care partner. But so I wanted you just to know that I'm aware of the issue, but I'm not about to change the term. The first thing we want to realize is that none of us asked for this. We didn't stand up and volunteer. That's the normal case. Now, there may be people who did stand up and volunteer to take care of maybe someone who's not even a family member or a distant family member. But for most of us, the fact is that the only sense in which we volunteered was the fact that we got married. And in the marriage vows, it's until death do us part. Although in today's world, I've actually had couples ask me to change the vow to until love do us part. And I declined to do that and told them they needed to find another minister, because that wasn't my view at all. In fact, I was strongly against that concept. And some of them did. They went out and found someone else to do the service because I wouldn't provide the kind of service that they wanted. But the idea that when we got married so long ago, and for my wife and I now it's 61 years ago, and when I met her she was 19 and I was 21. And we were just at the start of life. And now when she said those vows, she didn't realize that she was marrying an old man. And I didn't realize I was marrying an old woman. But if you're together long enough, that's what happens. And that's just the natural course of things. Let me give you the notes here. I think it's helpful to have them. Not everyone has the same reaction when they find themselves to be a caregiver. When I was a fire department chaplain, I had a 27-year-old firefighter who suddenly was diagnosed with testicular cancer. He had 2 little boys, 2 and 4, and a wife. And when he announced to her that he had testicular cancer, and it was a serious case, she announced she was leaving because her words, "I don't want to be married to an invalid." And she left. And I told him later, that was a good thing. As hard as it was, you found out early that that wasn't the woman that you needed to be married to. Because the reaction like that is not what the marriage vows are about. Till death do us part means literally until one of us dies. And so if you end up being the caregiver for your spouse, I hope you are able to break through to see that it's a privilege, that you are fulfilling the marriage vows, and that you're doing that is a privilege, and that through doing that, you are able to find a peace and a joy that is surprising, because this is something that you promised so long ago, and it's because of love. the sense of fulfillment that you get through caregiving is palpable. It really is. It really is good. Now, I think that most people are probably somewhere on the spectrum of feeling it's a privilege and feeling it's too much. And not only are most people somewhere on the spectrum, but it can change. It can change momentarily. It can change over time. Because your loved one's condition will change. And as his deterioration or her deterioration progresses, you don't know where you're going to end up being or how you're going to be feeling. But I think that if you start out with the idea that this is a privilege, you're on the right track. Now, the caregiver, paragraph 104, it's the caregiver who was the one who first picked up on the deterioration, the mental deterioration in dementia. And with Alzheimer's, the tip-off in probably 90% of cases is the repeated asking of the same question. And that's, that finally it hits you in the face and you realize, oh, wow, this is not right. When your loved one asks you the same question every 3 minutes, and that goes on for an hour, you're overwhelmed and you don't know what to do because you know that this isn't normal. And there are many people who are not informed enough to know that the one thing you've got to avoid at all costs is you cannot confront him or her with this and say, "What's the matter with you? Are you stupid? I just told you 5 minutes ago." That is, the road to a cliff. You can't do that. You've got to have the patience to respond in the same patient manner with the same answer every time, even if it goes on for an hour, and even if it goes on for days. And so the strategies you use then are learn to answer in a very short way. Don't make it long, because you're going to have to keep repeating it. And repeat it the same way every time until finally he'll get the idea. And then that idea can actually be there for a while, at least long enough to stop the questioning. And then when you are first confronted by say, Alzheimer's in your loved one, there are lots of unanswered questions. You don't know the course of the disease. Now, in hospice, we had Alzheimer's patients who, just it was kind of like a long-term thing. They'd had it for 10 years, and now finally they were on hospice, or even longer, 15 years. But we had some patients who had only had it for a few months. And the average from the first symptom to death in the United States for Alzheimer's patients is a little over 8 years, like 8.2 or something like that. And a friend of mine who I used to ride bicycles with, a medical doctor, got Alzheimer's, and he was young. He was about 58 or 59, and he was dead in 18 months. It can go very fast. And you just don't know. So when you're confronted in your loved one with it, that's a huge question. You're wondering right away, is this going to be fast or is this going to be slow? And you don't know. You just you have no idea. And you're filled with uncertainty. And you have questions. You ask yourself, well, is this person is your loved one going to become mean in their personality change, because Alzheimer's always brings personality change. Hard to handle, grumpy, difficult to live with. And with men, the danger is that men are almost always stronger than their spouse. And they, an old man in his 80s even can still be pretty strong and cause damage, physical damage. So the most common reason for a man to be institutionalized with Alzheimer's is safety for his wife. Because when he acts out, if he gets mean, it's just an untenable situation. It just can't be. He has to be institutionalized. But there's a smaller number of people who become nice and charming and helpful. They try to be helpful and just lovely. And people are, it's a spectrum again, all over. But so it's not always grim. It's not always just awful. Sometimes it could surprise you. And working with, maybe 5 Alzheimer's patients a day in a 40-hour week, you get around and you get to see different situations, and you realize how blessed some couples are and how difficult it is for others. And so you don't know when you're starting out as a caregiver, it's quite frightening. So here's an interview with a man whose wife was in, this was a woman. Her husband was in his 8th year caring for his wife. And in 105, I asked the question, it is essential for the caregiver to break through to acceptance in order to find peace. How were you able to do that? So now this is after 8 years of caregiving. So he said, well, you can see his response to 105. All he could see was tragedy. He didn't know much about Alzheimer's, but he did have some experience, and he realized that it was going to be bad. And he just, like he said, it was like being hit by a truck. But notice the last sentence in the paragraph. The important thing is that I am at peace. He was able to get through that and to accept it and to realize that he still had a role to play, that love was still alive, and he was able to care for her at home, which he had her at home because she was not acting out in any way. Number 104, I got 104 again. Boy, how did I do that? I'll have to remember this. I just revised these. Anyway, the second number 104, did you and your spouse talk about what to do in case that you got dementia? And again, it was a problem of profession that he was in the medical profession, and he wasn't a physician though, but he worked in the medical profession, and it was just, his attitude, the patient's attitude was, well, if I ever got Alzheimer's, shoot me, or he would shoot himself, and he had guns. So that was a big problem. And then number 105, I thought was interesting. I asked her, what were the first things that you did when all of this started happening? And she contacted the Alzheimer's Society thinking that they would help her. And the Alzheimer's Society isn't prepared to answer telephone calls or emails. They don't. So she had a negative experience with the Alzheimer's Society. They just put her on the mailing list for donations. But later on, she did discover all of the helpful writings that they do. And that's the main thing, is they're a distributor of literature. And excellent material. It's very helpful. And I relied on it heavily in putting the seminar together. So it is a great organization, but it did not meet the needs of a new caregiver who was reaching out, trying to find help. In 106, did you tell? It should be your husband. I got this confused when I was writing it. Did you tell your husband that you thought that he was cognitively impaired? And of course, she didn't, because of the fact that his feelings, and the fact that he had guns, and the fact that he tended, even in life, I mean, his normal life, he was like this macho guy. So then did you alert his personal physician of his condition? And she did, and the physician cooperated in not announcing to the patient his diagnosis. And so they still go to see, when at the time of my interview, they were still going to see their regular physician twice a year, and he was just monitoring their health. And number 108, what advice do you have for anyone facing the same situation? And I thought that was really helpful advice, to start to build a network right away. Start thinking about what your needs are and how you could find people to help you. And her needs, of course, were needing someone to work on the house, little things, a doorknob that falls off. She doesn't know how to put that back on. But she plugged into a group that provided those kind of services to widows and women in that situation. And just develop, a list of people who would be able to help you. Notice she mentioned getting a GPS watch from Angel Sense. Angel Sense is a unique organization. You can just Google it and you'll find it. It's just Angel and Sense, S-E-N-S-E. And they provide this wristwatch, and it's a nonprofit, and they rent you this GPS wristwatch, and it's a GPS tracking thing, but it's unique in that it allows you as the caregiver to talk directly through the watch to your patient without the patient having to punch in a button or anything. The watch will just start talking to the patient. So that's a real help, and just everyday help. If you go out somewhere, you know then that you can, find them right away if you lose them. I couldn't tell you how much she appreciated that. And then I mention in here, or she mentions the interview and the support group, and I put in the plug for the caregiver support group that currently meets at our church. I don't know how long it'll be here. It's been here about a year now, I think. And then we come to long-range planning. Well, if you have children, they can help you. If you're the caregiver and you have children, they can help you with the long-range planning, perhaps. But many caregivers find themselves in a place where they end up doing it themselves. And the reason I emphasize long-range planning is that the course of the disease changes, and so needs change. And there are things that you just need to be able to plan ahead for. The most common one is what happens if I need to put him in an institution for a week, say, or two to go and do something. And you can have that all planned out ahead of time. Way before the need, you can go around and find a place that'll take a patient for a week. And that way you're prepared in case something happened. I mean, what happens if you have a sister, for example, that dies in Wisconsin and you need to go back there for a week? At least you've got it ready. So long-range planning is vital. Having your house fitted out with video cameras so that you can always see your loved one, that's really a wonderful thing. And you can put those cameras inside and out. You need to have your yard fenced, your property fenced and gated, so you can lock the gates so that your loved one can go out into the garden but not out into the street. One of the characteristics of Alzheimer's is the patient will wander. Now, some wander more than others. It's true. But I think I could say that from my experience that every Alzheimer's patient at one point at least has wandered off. And they don't know that they're doing it. They just do it. So it's important to be able to secure your property. And that, of course, needs to be pre-planned and have that all done as soon as you can. And that's expensive, but it's worth it to get the peace of mind that you need. Now, some people live in a property that's already fenced, and maybe they just have to put up the gates or whatever. So that can be done.
Have you ever heard, I've heard this a couple times here, middle of the night or something, there's some helicopter flying overhead and addressing Mr. Jones, we're looking for you or whatever, and I'm assuming this is somebody who has wandered off.
Yeah, the comment was sometimes there's a helicopter overhead where they're calling out, like, Mr. Jones, we're looking for you, we want to help you. I've never experienced that. I've seen helicopters, but I will tell you that I know from talking to so many people how helpful the police department is if you should have a loved one wander. They really do a good job. They're very empathetic. They call out the troops, and their attitude is just excellent. And then they usually call it the fire department, and so you end up having both the fire department and the police department going up and down the streets until they find your loved one, who doesn't know where they are, and very often they're not panicked. They're just out for a nice walk, and they don't know where they're going, and they don't know where they came from, and they wouldn't know how to get home. So that's something that you do early on. If your loved one disappears, that's the first thing you do, is call it in. And then it's also helpful to carry on your phone a picture of your loved one so that in that event, from wherever you are, you can send it, you can text it to a police department, because they really like having a picture so that they're able to find the right person. So the next question is 110, is a sticky question. Do you keep your loved one at home, or are you going to put them in an institution? And I want to point out right away, first off, there's no right answer. It just depends on you and your loved one. It depends on her condition or his condition. It depends on your living conditions. It depends on your size and his size, on how his personality has changed. There's so many things. But there are many cases where the patient remains very docile and very peaceful and never acts out, where you could keep the patient at home unless they have some skilled need, a skilled nursing need. You're able to do that if that's something that you want to do. But financial considerations are huge. It's very expensive. They call they call it memory care. Memory care usually is at SNFs. A SNF is a skilled nursing facility. A board and care is much more like at home. They only have a smaller number of patients, usually, like 5 or 6, in a home, and it's quite different and very, very nice. Costs a lot less. I don't know for sure what its memory care is going for now, but 10 years ago it was $5,000 a month, so you can be sure it's a lot more. But I worked mostly in the area of Palm Springs, Palm Desert, La Quinta, Indian Wells, and we had SNFs with memory care that cost $25,000 a month. I mean, we had SNFs, facilities that were so fancy they had their own bowling alley and all kinds of crazy things. So it's a concern. Are you able to pay that kind of money? And some people it's not a problem, but some people it is. So there's certainly a lot of different factors that measure into it that you have to look at to try to figure it out. Now, number 112, if your loved one breaks a hip at home or anywhere, falling, and that's the worst thing in the world is the fall, whether you've got Alzheimer's or not. If you're in your 80s and you fall, it's life-threatening. My roommate in college, who is my age because he was in my class, who was a great track athlete, fell 4 months ago, and now he's on hospice and not expected to live because he broke his hip. And that's such a big shock to the system that many, many people in their 80s don't recover from it. So you've got to, above all, keep your loved one from falling. And that's hard to do if they're mentally not sharp, if they're impaired a little bit. They just don't think of those things. So it becomes really a struggle to be able to do that. But you have to ask yourself the question, where will he or she get the best care? And of course, following a surgery on a hip replacement or repair, they're going to be at least 2 months in a care facility to help them with physical therapy. They'll need it daily. And then if you're fortunate, they'll be able to come home. But then they're still at a huge risk. Well, number 114, what kind of care facilities are available? Well, SNFs offer the highest level of care, but it's also much more sterile, devoid of feeling. They're not nice places. I hate to say it, but most SNFs are not nice places. I'm just disappointed after spending years visiting in SNFs. But if a patient has a skilled nursing need, they have to be there. And if a patient goes onto Medi-Cal or any kind of state aid or federal aid, then that only applies to a SNF. It does not apply to a board and care. So and memory care units are all in board and cares. So you're stuck. You end up being in a SNF, whether you like it or not. But if you have a choice in the matter, and the patient does not have a skilled nursing facility like a broken hip, And then, even for like if you had to have them taken care of for a week, find a board and care. They're all over. They can be, according to zoning laws, you can have a board and care in any zone. Just R1, residential, you can have a board and care. Because they're limited to like 5 or 6 patients. And they can be really good places. And when my wife was an RN, she just raved about a couple of the board and cares here in Redlands that were just so excellent, where they just cared for the patients like they were their own parents. So number 116, in today's world, there are far more patients being cared for at home with the help of paid caregivers and the support of home health to provide nursing services. There are more patients at home than there are in SNFs, and that's a good thing. And home health is something that is available to you if you're eligible for Medicare, and there's no other requirement. If you need a nurse, you're eligible to get a free nurse to come and visit you through home health. So self-care for caregivers, number 117, and that's where I started, the fact that it's so important for you to take care of yourself, especially when you're the sole caregiver. So you take care of yourself by hiring someone to come in, maybe every day or every other day for at least a couple hours to give you a break so you can go wherever you want. It's important that you take time to pursue your interests and hobbies that you did beforehand and not be isolated. You have to deal with stress that's in your life, and that's hard. If you're the wife and the man always took care of the bills, suddenly you're the one who has to do it, and you've got all this stress on top of you. So getting in a caregiver support group, that can play a key role in helping you, because you're going to be sitting next to other people who are going through the same thing that you are. And you're able to share your experiences and they can share theirs. And boy, that is such a good thing. So it's the second Sunday, 2 o'clock here at our church. And really, I so highly support it. Now, next week, we are going to be looking at a unique topic. It's the last session. And it's a real bombshell, because I'm going to be presenting the projections of Alzheimer's in California, where we are now and where we're going to be in 50 years. And it's horrifying. And nobody is talking about it. It's not in the newspapers. Unless they find a cure for Alzheimer's disease, we are headed for a train wreck. I mean, really bad. Where every other person, every other old person will have dementia. And as we're going to see next week, society cannot support that. And everything is going to change. And we're going to go into mercy killing, because there'll be no other way to handle it. And that's all in the future, unless they are able to cure Alzheimer's disease. And you think, oh, well, they can put a man on the moon and they can cure Alzheimer's disease. Well, not so. They've been working on Alzheimer's disease now for about almost 150 years. And they can't find a cure for it. So I have no confidence that they're going to find a cure in the next 50 years. And I'm going to be gone by then, but my granddaughter will be here. And just think of that, what your grandkids are going to face. So that is the depressing subject for our last session. But I think it's one that we need to know about, just so that we, as citizens, that we will be able to urge our government to try to do something about Alzheimer's disease in terms of finding a cure. because that's the only answer that there is to this. Now, do you have any questions, comments? We have lots of microphones here today. There you are.
A question about longevity. You mentioned a young man that only lasted 18 months after he contacted or turned to Alzheimer's. What is the main cause of the shortness? People wandering in front of traffic, or is there they're not taking care of themselves? What causes the actual death?
That is unknown. In some people, the course of the disease goes very quickly, and we don't know. Scientists don't know why that is. They don't know if it's genetic. They don't know if it's because maybe when you were 20, you got exposed to gasoline fumes. I mean, nobody knows. But and of course, that's true with a lot of cancers. Take prostate cancer. They know this for sure. If you're diagnosed with prostate cancer when you're in your 50s, you're not going to be around here very long. That's going to go like wildfire. And that is generally true with most cancers. The younger you're diagnosed, the worse it's going to be. So if you're diagnosed with prostate cancer when you're in your 80s, you probably don't even have to do anything about it. But why is it that some people just go so quick and some people, the course of the disease, it's just very slow? No idea. He was a medical doctor. I mean, he was a man who was highly educated, and generally, they've shown that education helps prevent dementia. But with Alzheimer's, there are these people diagnosed in their 50s, and they all go quick. So the later you're diagnosed, the better off you're going to be. If you're diagnosed in your 80s with Alzheimer's, you probably will live out a pretty normal lifespan. Because, you only have like maybe 15 or 18 years and you're 100, and what is it? 0.3% of the population lives to be 100. So you don't have to worry about it then. But that's a really good question. Why is it?
I just have two quick comments. You're right. Being a caregiver is terrible. It's awful. You live through it. I got broken. I stood up with God's help. I still look back at it as the best thing I ever did is supporting him and trying to keep him safe for those years. And I do not regret it. If I was given the choice to go back, I would do it the same. I'm thinking I would be wiser and do it better.
Yeah.
But I would certainly do the same thing I was doing. The other thing, my husband was well, fit. He didn't have blood pressure and heart medicine. He was very healthy. He choked to death. And sometimes that's one of the things you look for with Alzheimer's is, are they swallowing correctly?
Yeah.
So that's how he died.
Well, when you look at our lives and look back, well, thank you for coming.